Thank you for the support. Thank you. Hey everyone, QI Maple here. Today we're diving straight into the gem system. For this video, I'm trying to keep it as crisp, clean, and easy to understand as possible across the whole net. We'll be covering different gem progression methods, so if there's a specific part you want to see, feel free to skip ahead. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Every type of gem provides different stats, and I've put together a table here for you to check out. Among all the gems, only the black and white ones have a lower drop rate than the other types. At the same time, they provide the damage boost and damage resistance that late game players will desperately need once their crit rate starts heavily overflowing. Each type of gem can only be socketed into specific gear pieces. Similarly, while white and black gems can only be socketed into 2 specific slots, all the other types can go into 3. Unlike other sources of power, gems don't constantly pop up with the value packs. Basically, if you want to invest in them, your only real option is the trading house. Of course, you could also choose to use Loot Bar, the safest and most affordable trading platform out there. Their prices are 12% cheaper than official stores. For example, a $99 pack costs only $79 here, saving you nearly 20 bucks. It's 100% safe. You only need your UID, never your password. The self-top-up through their secure cloud device is instant and super easy. Plus, Loot Bar has a 4.9 rating on Trustpilot with a 7-day refund guarantee. Don't miss out. Sign up through my link below to get an extra 10% off new user coupon, saving you 22% in total. Go check it out. Gems can easily be called the system with the highest permanent power conversion efficiency in the entire game. Take my free-to-play account, for example. Without a single cent invested in gems, they still provide 12.82 million permanent power. That is a whopping 23% of my total 54.38 million permanent power. However, I do need to clarify one thing. Even though gems grant a massive amount of permanent power, this power comes from your character's own base stats, not from those scaling power systems. Although they are socketed into your gear, the power they provide actually has absolutely nothing to do with what tier of gear you're wearing. You can easily test this yourself by swapping your high-tier gear for low-tier gear. This also means that when a new season kicks off, the power from your gems won't shoot up dynamically like it does with gear and relics. Usually, I'd recommend ordinary players avoid heavy investments in gems, as the payoff in the late game isn't life-changing. As for whether you should sell them or hoard them for yourself, that completely depends on your playstyle. Below, I'm going to introduce 2 distinct playstyles that work for both whales and free-to-play players alike. Take a look and see which one speaks to you. Neither is inherently better or worse. The first approach is to focus on specific stats to maximize your class advantages. For instance, DPS classes would invest in offensive gems, while defensive classes would invest in tanky gems. Whales typically lean towards speed because it gives them a massive edge in PvP. On the other hand, free-to-play players usually opt for offensive gems because those stats give them a much bigger advantage when pushing maps. Any leftover gems you don't need can simply be listed on the trading house to rake in a higher Donium profit. Generally speaking, for a DPS class, choosing between HP or defense doesn't make a huge difference, because you don't have specific skills to amplify the benefits of those defensive gems. For example, a Sage will prioritize HP because their healing skills scale off their max HP, whereas a Knight will choose defense because their shields are based on their defense stat. Naturally, black and white gems tend to sit at lower levels, purely because their drop rates are slightly lower than the rest. Of course, this also means they command a much higher price on the trading house. For the vast majority of players, keeping them or selling them is entirely your call. For instance, you could choose to sell your rubies and use black gems yourself, or sell your black gems and keep the red or purple ones. There's no right or wrong here, because holding on to rarer gems genuinely gives you more combat capability. The market varies on every single server. On some, red is expensive. On others, purple or black is the priciest. Don't be silly and assume that only the most expensive item is the best choice. Now that I've broken down what these gems are used for, just keep the ones you need most. Use them and let your daily gem income slowly stack up over time. The second approach is to keep the absolute cheapest gems on the entire server for yourself, and then sell off all the expensive ones to maximize your immediate power. This choice has its pros and cons. When you see someone else's gems giving them a 10% crit rate boost or a 25% healing boost, you might feel a pang of regret. But you definitely haven't wasted the resources you sold. You've just converted them into relic power, Phantomon ability pages, and so on. It's a bit like an F2P duelist selling off their eggs to buy wool just to squeeze out a bit more crit rate. This method isn't very popular in free-to-play circles because this kind of power conversion is quite invisible, making it hard to measure whether you're actually losing out or making a profit. However, this progression style has spawned an interesting sub-branch among whales. I won't sell a single one. I'm keeping them all for myself to maximize my gem levels. The gem upgrading system in SwordxStaff is a total classic. If you're lucky, you hit the jackpot. If you're unlucky, it shatters and leaves you with nothing. Veteran gamers will probably recognize this upgrade trap instantly. Because of this, many whales will save one of each gem they don't actually need to use as success rate fodder. Once they use those trash gems to bump the success rate up to 100%, they'll swap in the black or white gems they actually care about. That's exactly what I do on my pay-to-win account, making use of every single gem. You can easily compare the gem choices between my pay-to-win account and my free-to-play account. I always believe that seeing a straightforward side-by-side comparison is worth 1,000 words. When you first start out, every piece of gear has only one socket, and a new slot unlocks with each upcoming season. Currently, a single piece of gear can hold a maximum of 4 gems. You could argue that these gems don't feel like they do much during the seasonal grind, but the base stats they offer are genuinely massive. Especially for gems level 10 and above, where the scaling becomes absolutely terrifying. You could also argue that gems aren't that useful for free-to-play players. But right when a new season opens up, they provide just enough raw stats to help ordinary players clear out the kingdom maps as fast as possible before the main season hits, allowing them to secure the maximum experience bonus from the grand statues. I hope this video gives players who are still confused about the gem system some direction and clarity to help you find your preferred gem progression path. My Discord has a complete, comprehensive gem guide, and there are tons of experienced players there who already know the system inside out and are ready to help you find your own way. I'll drop the link in the description and the comments section. Until next time, see ya. Bye-bye.